In 1943, a Soviet sniper unit faced a problem. Their new rifle was mocked as unreliable. Yet one sniper used it to kill 33 Nazi snipers in just 7 days, proving its deadly effectiveness under brutal battlefield conditions. This changed how snipers fought on the Eastern Front. December 1942. The outskirts of Stalingrad lie buried under deep snow. The city is scarred after months of relentless fire and sea. Buildings stand shattered, with chimneys broken and windows reduced to jagged glass. The air is cold and still, punctuated only by the distant crack of rifle shots. Soviet and German snipers stalk each other through the ruins. Each tries to outguess the other in this deadly game of patience and precision. Into this frozen battlefield arrives Ivan Sidorenko. He is a young Red Army conscript, recently assigned to a frontline sniper unit. In his hands is a Mosin-Nagant rifle, worn and battered from constant use. It is an older model, weighed down by scratches and dents. His new comrades greet him with skepticism. Their eyes are sharp and tired from endless combat. They openly scoff at Ivan's weapon. To them, it seems inferior to the newer German rifles in enemy hands. They believe his old Mosin-Nagant cannot match the enemy's accuracy or firepower. But Ivan carries the rifle with quiet determination. He knows its every part. The soldiers around him are hardened, but he remains calm and focused. His presence is unassuming, almost invisible among the weary men. In the coming days, something changes. Stories begin to spread along the lines, whispered tales of a sniper working with a rifle that others dismissed. Enemy soldiers start falling from unseen shots. Ivan's Mosin-Nagant becomes the subject of every conversation in the trenches. This is a story about more than just a rifle. It is about loyalty to comrades, to duty, and to the tools that survive the worst conditions. On this frozen battlefield, Ivan Sidorenko and his Mosin-Nagant will test the limits of skill against the odds. January 1943, Stalingrad. Sergeant Sidorenko stood in the ruined doorway of a burned-out apartment. Snow drifted through the broken window, settling on his boots and the floor. The city was a shattered ruin, frozen in winter. A younger Red Army sergeant leaned against the wall behind him. He grinned and slapped the wooden stock of Sidorenko's Mosin-Nagant rifle. "Old man's stick," he joked. The phrase drew a ripple of quiet laughter from the squad gathered nearby. Sidorenko's face showed no expression. His hands gripped the rifle tightly. The Mosin-Nagant was an older model, slower to cycle than newer rifles, but it was reliable. In Stalingrad, reliability meant survival. Outside, distant rifle cracks echoed through the cold air. The men fell silent for a moment, listening. Then the squad's banter resumed, softer now. They joked about the old rifle, but each man's eyes were alert. Sidorenko moved to the window, leaning forward. His eyes scanned the rubble-filled street below. The ruins of apartment blocks and factories were tangled with broken bricks and twisted metal. No clear lines, no safe cover. He said little. His ears caught every sound: the soft whistle of wind, a faint scuff of boots on snow, a distant shout. Each noise held a possible threat or a clue. In urban combat, sound was as vital as sight. The squad was part of the 138th Rifle Division. Their mission was to hold this sector of the city against German assault. Stalingrad was the strategic prize on the Volga River. Losing it would open the Soviet heartland to the enemy. Sidorenko's squad had fought through weeks of close-quarters battle. Buildings were destroyed, streets turned to rubble. Movement was slow and deadly. Every corner could hide a sniper or a grenade. The Mosin-Nagant rifle fired a 7.62 round at about 800 meters per second. It had a 5-round internal magazine. Accuracy dropped sharply beyond 300 meters in urban ruins. Still, it was enough for short-range fights that dominated Stalingrad. The younger sergeant, still smiling, checked his own rifle. It was a PPSH-41 submachine gun, firing 71 rounds per second at close range. The difference was noticeable. The PPSH was for fast room-to-room fighting. The Mosin-Nagant required patience and precision. Sidorenko's hands tightened on his rifle again. The rifle was weighty about 4 kilograms loaded, but balanced. It was his tool and his lifeline. In combat, a soldier's weapon was an extension of himself. The men's breath formed clouds in the freezing air. Temperatures hovered around -15 degrees Celsius. Cold could kill as surely as bullets. Frostbite, exhaustion, hunger, the Soviet soldiers endured all. Sidorenko's eyes caught movement across the street. A German soldier slipped behind a fallen wall, rifle raised. Sidorenko held his breath, steadying the Mosin-Nagant. He could wait. The rifle's iron sights were set for 100 meters. He squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked sharply. The German soldier fell. The squad shifted instantly, covering the street. In urban combat, seconds counted. Hesitation meant death. The younger sergeant broke the silence. "Old man's stick still sings true," he said quietly. The men nodded. Despite its age, the Mosin-Nagant had earned respect. Sidorenko glanced back at the squad. Each man had a role in this frozen battlefield. Some carried grenades. Others had machine guns or pistols. Together they formed a mobile defense. The squad's position was on the city's western edge, near the grain elevator. The Germans wanted to push through and cut the Soviets in half. Holding this line was vital. Sidorenko's listening stopped. Another crack of rifle fire echoed nearby. This time closer. The squad moved to their firing positions. The ruined apartment windows became firing ports. Snow drifted in, settling on rifles and helmets. The battlefield was silent again, but the tension was thick. Every soldier knew that the next minutes could bring an attack. Sidorenko adjusted his grip. His experience told him that patience was key. In Stalingrad, direct assaults were costly. They waited for the enemy to expose themselves. The squad's laughter and jokes had returned briefly, but the mood remained tense. They shared a bond forged through hardship and loyalty. Each man relied on the other to survive another day. Outside, the city remained a frozen graveyard of buildings and steel. The war had turned Stalingrad into a brutal maze. For Sidorenko and his squad, every ruined doorway was a potential death trap. Sidorenko's eyes scanned one last time across the snowy rubble. He knew every sound, every shadow mattered. In this fight, silence could be more deadly than gunfire. The Mosin-Nagant rested steady in his hands. It was old, but it was trusted. Old or new, weapon or man, survival depended on discipline and awareness. The winter battle for Stalingrad continued. For Sidorenko's squad, guarding this ruined doorway was one small but vital part of a much larger fight. They held their ground silent, alert, loyal. At dawn, the cold air was broken by a sharp crack. A bullet from a German sniper hit a young Soviet private. The squad's light banter died instantly. Confusion and alarm spread as the man collapsed to the ground. The sniper had found his target first. Sidorenko dropped low behind a broken wall. He steadied his rifle against the rough window ledge of a ruined building. His breath slowed and evened out. Every sound seemed distant, every movement critical. He waited, eyes fixed on the shattered street below. The street was littered with debris-burned-out vehicles, collapsed tram cars, and twisted metal. The ruins offered plenty of hiding places. Sidorenko knew the sniper could be anywhere. Yet through the haze of dawn, he caught a faint glint of glass reflecting light near a collapsed tram car. Movement flickered. Without hesitation, Sidorenko squeezed the trigger. The rifle barked once. The bullet flew straight and true. The German sniper slumped forward, dropping his rifle to the ground. Silence returned immediately. The squad froze, their faces shifting from shock to disbelief. The mocking smiles that had floated moments before vanished. In their eyes, Sidorenko was no longer just a comrade. He was a protector, a skilled soldier who had acted fast and saved them all. Sidorenko didn't speak. He quickly reloaded his rifle, fingers practiced and steady. His gaze never left the ruined street. He knew the danger had not passed. Death could come again at any second. The ruined cityscape was a deadly trap, and every shadow held a threat. The sniper's bullet had shattered the squad's light mood, but Sidorenko's quick action restored their focus. The lesson was clear. In urban combat, every second counted. One wrong move could mean death. The squad tightened their formation, their trust in Sidorenko silently acknowledged. Sidorenko's patience and precision had neutralized the immediate threat, but the fight was far from over. The ruined streets were a maze of danger. The squad prepared to move forward, aware that the enemy could strike again from any ruined corner or shattered window. In that moment, Sidorenko's calm under fire set the tone. His steadiness was a shield for the squad. The sniper's fall was more than a kill. It was a message. Vigilance and training could turn the tide in close, deadly combat. The squad moved on, eyes scanning every ruined building and broken streetlight. Sidorenko led with quiet confidence. The memory of the sniper's shot lingered, a reminder of the thin line between survival and death in this war-torn city. This was the harsh reality of urban warfare. Sidorenko's shot had saved lives, but it also showed how quickly the situation could change. The squad now understood that every movement mattered. Trust and loyalty kept them alive. Sidorenko's rifle was ready again. His eyes scanned the ruined street, alert for the next threat. The rifle in his hands was their lifeline, in a place where death waited silently behind every corner. Word spread quickly through the muddy trenches. Sidorenko had killed 3 German snipers in just 2 days. His fellow soldiers whispered this with a mix of surprise and cautious hope. It was midday on the 3rd day. The sun hung low, casting long shadows over the barren no-man's land. From across the open ground, a sharp German officer's voice rang out, shouting orders and insults. The Soviets listened, tense and silent, gripping their rifles tighter. Suddenly, shots cracked across the battlefield. Bullets whistled past the trench walls, forcing men to duck and press low. The Soviets answered with rapid fire, their rifles sending echoes over the shattered earth. Sidorenko stayed calm. He crouched behind a battered sandbag wall, eyes scanning the broken ground. He knew snipers were deadly, patient hunters. One mistake meant death. His squad looked to him. Their earlier doubts had faded. Now they waited for his signal. Through his rifle's scope, Sidorenko scanned the ruins. Movement caught his eye, a flash of gray, behind a low stone wall 50 meters away. A German sniper, barely visible, crouched carefully. Sidorenko adjusted his aim. He steadied his breath, knowing any extra movement could ruin the shot. He squeezed the trigger gently. The sniper fell. A single shot. Silent except for the faint thud when the man hit the ground. The squad remained motionless. The previous mockery was replaced by quiet respect. Sidorenko had proven himself not just a marksman, but a leader who could hold the line. No man's land was a deadly place. Every step meant risk. Sidorenko's skill gave his men a chance to survive. The math was simple: kill the enemy's snipers quickly and fewer men would die. Snipers operated with patience. They waited for seconds, sometimes minutes, for the perfect shot. Sidorenko matched their patience, waiting until he had a clear target. His calm under fire was crucial. Panic would have meant missed shots, wasted ammunition, and death. Instead, he remained focused. His decision to hold fire until the enemy was fully exposed saved lives. The squad's change in attitude was immediate. They moved with more confidence. Their trust in Sidorenko grew. In combat, trust among men was as vital as ammunition. Sidorenko's 3 sniper kills in 2 days shifted the balance. German snipers had been a major threat, pinning down Soviet troops and causing heavy casualties. Removing them improved his unit's chances significantly. Sidorenko's actions demonstrated the importance of sniper tactics in trench warfare. Snipers were not just shooters. They were observers and hunters. The ability to spot and eliminate enemy snipers required steady nerves and sharp eyes. Sidorenko's success also showed that individual skill could influence a larger battle. One effective sniper could force the enemy to change tactics, slow their advance, or pull back. The squad tightened their formation. They stayed alert, scanning for movement. Sidorenko took his place not just as a marksman, but as a guardian for his men. As the hours passed, the tension eased slightly. The German sniper threat had lessened. Sidorenko's squad could move more freely in the trenches. The moment marked a turning point for the unit. Sidorenko's calm, precise shooting earned him the respect he needed to lead. In the trenches, few things were certain. Death and fear were constants. But Sidorenko's quiet actions reminded his men that skill and patience could tip the odds. His name began to carry weight in the unit. Stories of his kills spread beyond the trench lines. Sidorenko became a symbol of loyalty and effectiveness under fire. The enemy was still dangerous, but now Sidorenko's squad had a fighting chance. His sniper kills chipped away at the German advantage. In the brutal math of trench warfare, every enemy sniper removed meant fewer Soviet deaths. Sidorenko's steady hand saved lives. The silence after the sniper fell was heavy. It was a brief moment of victory in a grinding war. Sidorenko looked across no man's land. He knew more dangers lay ahead. But for now, his skill had made the difference. His men moved with renewed purpose. The memory of his shots stayed with them. Skill and calm had turned fear into respect. Sidorenko's story was just one among many in the vast conflict. But on this day in this trench, his quiet courage stood out. The sniper who could wait, watch, and shoot with deadly precision was a key weapon. Sidorenko understood that better than most. His kills did not end the battle, but they changed it. His squad survived longer, fought better. Sidorenko's story would be remembered quietly by his comrades, a testament to steady skill under fire. The math was clear: good snipers saved lives. Sidorenko was that sniper. And in the trenches, that made all the difference. The squad moved carefully through the shell-blasted remains of the factory. Walls stood half-collapsed, twisted metal hung from shattered beams. Snow drifted across the rubble-strewn floor. Sidorenko led the way, his boots crunching softly on frozen debris. Ahead, the body of a German sniper lay sprawled, face locked in shock. His eyes stared wide, frozen in the moment he died. Blood stained the snow around him, dark and stark against the white. The men paused briefly, their breaths visible in the cold air. He looked at the commander with new respect, wondering what it was Sidorenko saw that others did not. The questions passed silently between the men. How does he see us? How does he know where the danger lies? Sidorenko moved forward without a word. His senses were alert. He listened to the wind as it swept through broken windows. The scrape of boots on concrete echoed faintly. In the distance, the rumble of artillery rolled over the landscape like a low thunder. The harsh noises of battle were constant, but Sidorenko's focus was sharp. Every sound held a possible warning. Every shadow might conceal an enemy. He felt the weight of his own men behind him, the lives depending on his decisions. The soldier who had doubted Sidorenko's leadership now watched how the commander's eyes flicked from one detail to another. Sidorenko noted broken glass on the floor, a faint trail of footprints in the snow, the slight change in the wind's direction. He read the environment like a map. The men whispered among themselves. Their voices were low, careful not to break the fragile silence. They wondered if Sidorenko could hear their thoughts. They wondered if he felt the same fear and fatigue that gnawed at them. Sidorenko felt the pressure of every life around him. His own heart beat steadily but firmly. There was no room for hesitation. Every step he took was calculated. Every decision could mean survival or death. The factory had become a maze of destruction. Corridors led to empty rooms, machinery twisted and useless. The cold seeped through their uniforms, but the men kept moving. Sidorenko's presence gave them a sense of order in the chaos. The soldier who had doubted him now understood something deeper. Sidorenko's awareness extended beyond what anyone else could see. It was not just training or experience, it was something more. It was loyalty to his men, to each life in the squad. The squad passed over broken concrete steps and through doorways rimmed with frost. Outside, the wind howled, carrying the distant clash of guns. Inside, the silence was heavy, filled only by their controlled breathing and careful footsteps. Sidorenko paused briefly at a corner. He crouched and scanned the area. His eyes caught a faint glint, a piece of metal caught in the snow. He signaled the men to halt. The squad froze, waiting for his next move. He pointed toward a narrow opening between two fallen beams. It was a choke point, a likely spot for an enemy trap. The men adjusted their formation, moving with more caution now. Sidorenko's calm steadied them. One soldier whispered, "How do you know?" Sidorenko answered simply, "The wind and the footprints tell the story." His voice was low, steady. The men nodded, trusting his instincts. The squad pressed forward again, each member watching their own sector. Sidorenko remained alert to every detail. He kept the squad tight, protecting their flanks and rear. The factory was a dangerous place. The enemy could strike from any shadow. Through the shattered windows, pale daylight filtered in. The cold air bit at their faces, but the men pushed on. They followed Sidorenko's lead, step by step, through the ruined factory. Every soldier in the squad understood the stakes. They moved as one, bound by loyalty and trust. Sidorenko carried the burden of command, but he shared the risk equally. Each life mattered. As they advanced, the soldier who once doubted Sidorenko's leadership felt a change. He saw the commander not just as a tactician, but as a protector. Someone who could read danger and guide them safely through chaos. The squad passed the sniper's body again. The scene was a stark reminder of their reality. Death was close, sudden, and without warning. Sidorenko didn't look away. He took the moment as a lesson for his men. The factory was silent now, except for their careful movements. Sidorenko listened again, to the wind, the boots, the distant guns. He felt the eyes of his men on his back, waiting for orders. In that cold, broken place, loyalty held the squad together. Sidorenko's clear-headed leadership turned fear into focus. He was the guide through a deadly maze. In combat, every second counted. Every decision was life or death. Sidorenko moved forward, steady and sure. The men followed, knowing he saw what they could not. Their survival depended on it. Night fell over the forest near Leningrad in late 1942. Sergeant Ivan Sidorenko sat alone in his small dugout. A single candle flickered, casting a weak light on the worn stock of his Mosin-Nagant rifle. His fingers moved with precise care, stripping the bolt and cleaning each part. The rifle was battle-worn, the metal dulled by months at the front, the wooden stock chipped and scratched. Sidorenko worked steadily, knowing a well-maintained rifle meant survival. He remembered his father's words from his youth. "Patience is the best hunter's weapon," his father had said. Sidorenko repeated the lesson silently as he cleaned the bolt. Patience would be his greatest strength in the coming hours. Outside, the darkness pressed in. The forest was silent, except for an occasional distant crack of gunfire. Both Soviet and German snipers were spread across this no-man's land, waiting and watching through the long, cold night. Sidorenko's thoughts drifted to the faces he had seen in battle. Not just the enemy, but his own comrades. The dead were everywhere now, frozen in the snow or hidden under branches. The faces flashed behind his closed eyelids, reminders of the cost of this war. He looked out through a small opening in the dugout. The moon was low, pale, offering just enough light to see shapes moving in the distance. He knew enemy snipers were on the other side. They were as alert as he was, ready to fire at any sign of movement. Sleep was thin and broken. Every distant crack or rustle made Sidorenko's heart beat faster. He tried to rest, but the night was full of ghosts, both real and imagined. The cold seeped into his bones, but he dared not move too much. Movement meant death. Sidorenko checked his rifle one more time, then settled back against the cold earth. His eyes stayed open, scanning the shadows. He thought about the many missions he had flown, and the lives saved by a single well-placed shot. His tactics were simple. Choose a target, wait without moving, and fire only when absolutely certain. Shooting too early or too late could mean missing the target or revealing his position. For a sniper, timing was everything. The Mosin-Nagant weighed familiar in his hands. It had a range of about 500 meters with deadly accuracy. Sidorenko had honed his skill to use every meter of that. The rifle's bolt-action mechanism allowed quick follow-up shots if necessary, but that was rare. Most kills came from the first bullet. He recalled the countless nights spent in similar dugouts. Each time the tension was the same. The silent duel between two unseen men, each waiting for the other to make a mistake. Survival depended on patience. Sidorenko thought about the war itself. Fierce fighting on the Eastern Front had cost millions of lives. Snipers like him played a critical role in slowing the German advance. Each shot saved comrades by reducing enemy pressure. The night stretched on. A faint sound of footsteps alerted him. Sidorenko froze, barely breathing. The footsteps stopped. He waited, counting seconds in his mind. Silence returned. It was a trap he had learned to avoid. He whispered to himself, "Patience is the hunter's best weapon." Then, slowly, he adjusted his position, keeping his rifle steady. The cold night passed slowly. The candle burned low until it finally went out, leaving Sidorenko in near-total darkness. Yet his eyes remained sharp. He relied on hearing and instinct now. As dawn approached, the forest began to lighten. Sidorenko still held his position. His body ached from the cold and long vigil, but the sniper knew this was part of the job. In this quiet moment, he understood the weight of loyalty to his unit, his country, and the men who counted on him to watch the shadows. Sidorenko stood and silently prepared to move at first light. The war around him was brutal and unforgiving. But in the stillness of this night, he had done what was necessary. He had waited. He had survived. In the end, patience was not just a lesson from his father. It was the difference between life and death on the front lines. For Sidorenko, and many like him, loyalty meant enduring the long nights, always ready for the shot that could turn the tide. A fresh snowstorm swept through the city on the morning of January 24, 1943. Visibility dropped to less than 50 meters as thick flakes drifted sideways in the bitter wind. The 3rd Rifle Squad of the Red Army was pinned down in a narrow street lined with shattered stone buildings. Their advance slowed to a crawl. Bullets chipped the stone around them, scoring the walls with deadly precision. A hidden sniper held them in place. No one could see where the shots were coming from. Every movement risked a bullet. Fear spread quietly through the squad. The men stayed low, pressed close behind crumbled walls and debris. The cold bit through their coats, but the danger was worse. Sergeant Sidorenko assessed the situation. He knew waiting would only cost them. The sniper's position had to be found and eliminated. Slowly, he began to crawl forward. Inch by inch, he moved across the snow-covered street, hands and knees digging into the frozen ground. The wind howled, but he kept his head down. At 20 meters, he spotted a faint shadow behind a chimney on the 2nd floor of a ruined building. The sniper's outline was barely visible against the gray stone. Sidorenko raised his rifle carefully, aimed between the falling snowflakes, and fired a single shot. The echo cracked sharply in the cold. Silence followed. The sniper did not respond. The squad held its breath, waiting. The sudden quiet broke the tension that had gripped them for minutes. Without orders, the men began to move forward cautiously, their nerves raw from the standoff. Sidorenko remained still behind his cover, scanning the area for more threats. The snowstorm showed no signs of letting up. Visibility was low. Shadows shifted behind broken walls and piles of rubble. Every moment could bring another sniper or ambush. The squad advanced in tight formation, eyes sharp despite the white haze. They pushed through the street, clearing corners, watching every doorway. Sidorenko covered their movement with steady, deliberate fire. His calm presence steadied the men. In this frozen city, trust was a rare commodity. Years of war had taught them suspicion. But here, under the snowstorm's cover, a new kind of trust was forming. It was quiet and reluctant, born of necessity and survival. Sidorenko's action had broken the sniper's hold. His willingness to move forward alone against the hidden enemy earned the squad's confidence. They depended on each other not just for firepower, but for the courage to keep moving. The snowstorm masked their progress, but it also made every step uncertain. Each man knew the cost of a single mistake. Sidorenko's rifle remained ready, his eyes scanning every shadow and chimney top. The squad pushed deeper into the ruins. The city had become a maze of cold stone and silence. But now, with the sniper's threat removed, they had a chance to continue their mission. Sidorenko's steady presence was a silent signal. Keep moving, stay alert, trust your comrades. The men followed, their steps cautious but determined. In the harsh winter of battle, loyalty was measured in small acts. A sniper's bullet could stop a squad, but a single man's courage could free them to advance. The storm raged on, but the squad moved forward. The quiet trust between them grew stronger with every step. Sidorenko did not speak. His eyes never left the street ahead. This was war, simple, brutal, and unforgiving. For the 3rd Rifle Squad, survival depended on moments like this. On trust born in silence, on courage tested in the snow, and on the unyielding will to keep fighting. The snowstorm hid their movements, but it could not hide the bond forming between them. It was a bond that would carry them through the long winter ahead. On the 5th day of the battle, Sidorenko was summoned to lead a new sniper team. The unit was stationed near a shattered village, just beyond the front lines. The air was heavy with dust and smoke. Around him, younger soldiers gathered quickly, their faces mixed with eagerness and fear. They had little experience but vast expectations. Sidorenko moved quietly among them. His voice was low and deliberate. He began teaching them practical skills essential for survival. First, he showed how to use broken glass as a spotting tool. He explained how fragments of mirror or window pane, when held steady, could reflect sunlight to catch enemy movement without exposing the sniper's position. The men listened, their eyes fixed on his hands demonstrating the technique. Next, Sidorenko pointed out how to find cover in wreckage. The village was a maze of ruined buildings, collapsed walls, and scattered debris. He taught them to recognize spots that offered both concealment and a clear line of sight. He warned them against open areas and places with shadows that moved too much. The soldiers practiced crawling into these hiding places, copying his careful movements. Sidorenko rarely spoke more than necessary. His silence was intentional. He wanted the men to focus on observing, not talking. The discipline he demanded was strict but measured. He made clear that patience was their greatest weapon. "Wait," he said simply. "Watch. Choose your moment." As hours passed, the young snipers grew more confident. They learned to control their breathing and steady their aim. Sidorenko emphasized waiting for the perfect shot, even if it took minutes or hours. He reminded them that rushing would only reveal their position. The men absorbed each lesson with quiet determination. Sidorenko's own reputation grew steadily during these days. His confirmed kills spread through the unit in hushed tones. No official count was made, but soldiers spoke of Sidorenko's ghost whenever German snipers became cautious. His ability to remain unseen and patient made him a deadly force. He rarely struck first. Instead, he waited for the enemy to make a mistake. The German snipers adjusted to his tactics. They moved slower, scanned wider, and avoided predictable patterns. They knew Sidorenko was out there, watching. But Sidorenko's patience surpassed their caution. He waited longer between shots. He changed positions frequently, but silently never hurried. This careful method kept him alive and effective. By the end of the fifth day, the sniper team had grown into a small unit of skilled marksmen. Sidorenko's quiet leadership instilled confidence. The young soldiers learned to trust the slow, methodical approach. Their kills increased, while their own losses stayed low. Each successful shot disrupted German movements, buying time for their comrades in the trenches. Sidorenko's approach was more than skill, it was loyalty in action. He protected the young men by teaching restraint. He protected their unit by eliminating threats one by one. He showed that survival came from discipline, not recklessness. The men followed him not just because he was an expert, but because he cared for their lives. The day ended with the team resting in a ruined cellar. The soldiers sharpened their rifles and cleaned their gear. Sidorenko sat apart, reviewing maps and notes. He made no boast of the day's success. Instead, he prepared quietly for what was next. His eyes never lost the sharpness that kept him alive. In combat, patience meant survival. Sidorenko's example proved that the deadliest sniper was not the one who fired fastest, but the one who waited longest. His method turned a group of scared boys into skilled hunters. The enemy learned to fear the silent watcher in the rubble. Sidorenko's leadership on that fifth day became a quiet legend among the troops. His kills were counted in whispers, but the impact was clear. The sniper team held the line longer, and losses dropped. The battle continued, but with Sidorenko's guidance, his unit was a steady force in the chaos. The lesson was simple and clear: patience outlasts speed. Discipline outmatches impulse. Loyalty means protecting your own through skill and calm. Sidorenko's quiet command held a harsh truth war was won not by noise, but by silence. At dawn on January 17, 1943, near the shattered ruins of Stalingrad, Sergeant Ivan Sidorenko faced a deadly problem. A German sniper, known among the troops for exceptional skill, was rumored to be stalking him. The duel between the two marksmen began with the fading night. Sidorenko and his squad held their positions in the cold, broken cityscape. The air was still. No sounds except the distant echoes of artillery. Both snipers knew the stakes one mistake meant death. Hours passed with tense silence. Sidorenko kept low, scanning the ruins with steady eyes. Every shadow could hide the enemy. His breathing slowed to avoid detection. The German sniper was patient, waiting for Sidorenko to expose himself first. The city seemed frozen, as if holding its breath. The cold bit through their clothes. Frost formed on rifles and helmets. Time stretched. Each man measured every heartbeat, every faint noise. Sidorenko's squad remained motionless. They trusted their sniper's instincts and discipline. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught Sidorenko's eye. A slight twitch of a sleeve, barely visible against the gray rubble. A faint exhale, a small cloud in the cold. Sidorenko reacted instantly. He raised his rifle, aimed carefully, and fired. The shot cracked sharply in the morning stillness. Seconds later, a distant thud confirmed the hit. The German sniper was down. Sidorenko's squad released a breath they hadn't realized they were holding. Relief spread quietly through the men. The immediate threat had vanished, but the weight of the fight did not lift. This duel was not just about two men. It represented the brutal, grinding nature of urban combat in Stalingrad. Every movement was a risk. Every second mattered. Sidorenko's skill turned the tables. His patience and precision saved lives that day. But the battle for the city continued, relentless and unforgiving. In moments like this, loyalty to comrades and discipline mattered most. Sidorenko stayed alert, knowing other dangers were just beyond the ruins. The sniper's victory was a small but vital piece of a much larger struggle. The duel ended, but the war in Stalingrad raged on. The city remained a silent witness to countless such encounters, each shaping the course of the battle and the fate of its defenders. Sidorenko's marksmanship and resolve became part of the unit's legacy. The silent fight at dawn was a testament to survival and loyalty under fire. In war, patience and precision decided life or death. Sidorenko understood this clearly. The sniper duel was over, but its memory stayed, a quiet reminder of the cost of war. By the end of the week, Sidorenko's tally reached 33 enemy snipers. Each kill brought the squad closer to a fragile victory. The men gathered in a ruined cellar beneath shattered buildings. The cellar offered scant protection, but enough to shield them from the constant artillery outside. Dust settled over cracked stone and splintered wood. The air smelled of smoke and damp earth. News of Sidorenko's success spread quickly through the squad. At first, many had doubted him. His quiet confidence did not impress the hardened sergeants used to more brash soldiers. One sergeant who had mocked Sidorenko's cautious approach now approached with lowered eyes. He held out a tin of bread, a simple but meaningful gesture. No words were exchanged. The weight of respect sat in the silence between them. Sidorenko accepted the bread without a word. The rifle rested heavily on his knees, battered but still reliable. Its worn wood and scratched metal spoke of many battles fought. That rifle had been his constant companion, his tool for survival. The men around him watched with a mix of hope and quiet fear. The fear was not of Sidorenko, but of the enemy still lurking beyond the cellar walls. Outside, artillery thundered in relentless barrages. The ground shook with each explosion. The cellar's walls trembled but held. Inside, the men sat close, sharing what little food remained. Their faces were tired, drawn. They ate slowly, not out of hunger, but as a ritual to steady nerves. No one spoke much. The silence was heavy, filled with unspoken thoughts about what lay ahead. The transformation in the squad was clear. Where mockery had once echoed, respect now took root. Sidorenko had changed the way they saw their enemy and themselves. He showed that patience and precision could win over brute force. His 33 kills were not just numbers. They were proof that skill mattered in this deadly game. The men understood that the war was not just about firepower, but about quiet loyalty to each other and their mission. The sergeant who once doubted Sidorenko now met his gaze steadily. There was no arrogance in that look-only acknowledgement. The simple act of offering bread said more than words could. It was a symbol of acceptance. The squad's morale, though fragile, had lifted. They found strength in knowing one of their own could control the deadly game of snipers. Sidorenko's rifle, though battered, was still dependable. It represented more than a weapon. It was a lifeline in the chaos of war. Every scratch and dent marked a moment when it saved a life. The men recognized that survival depended on trust in their weapons, in each other, and in the quiet skill of a single sharpshooter. Outside, the artillery fire continued without pause. The bombardment was a constant reminder of the danger, beyond the cellar's fragile shelter. Yet inside, the mood had changed. The men sat a little straighter. Their eyes, once filled with doubt, now held a spark of cautious hope. They knew the enemy was still out there, but Sidorenko's success gave them a reason to believe. In those long minutes, as the night deepened, the squad felt a sense of loyalty binding them. It was a loyalty forged in the unyielding pressure of combat. It was loyalty to each other, to the mission, and to the man who showed them that even the quietest soldier could shape the outcome. The cellar, scarred and broken, became a place of quiet gathering. Food was shared, weapons rested, and stories passed in murmurs. The outside world was chaos, but inside time slowed. The men held on to the moment, knowing it might be their last chance for peace before the next battle. Sidorenko looked at his rifle, then at his comrades. He did not speak. Words were unnecessary. The rifle on his knees was proof enough of what he had done, and what he could still do. The men understood that respect and loyalty were stronger than fear. They would follow him into the coming fight. The mockery was gone. In its place, a sober respect and a quiet fear remained. This fear was not weakness but awareness, a clear understanding of the stakes. The war was far from over, but that night in a ruined cellar, the squad found a fragile hope. Sidorenko's skill had given them a new strength. His 33 kills were a testament to the power of patience and precision in a war defined by chaos. The story of Sidorenko and his rifle would be remembered not for loud heroics, but for steady, reliable courage. Loyalty had carried them through the worst days. And in that loyalty, they found a thread of hope to hold on to amid the noise of artillery and the shadow of death. The snow fell steadily over the ruined city. Sidorenko moved through the shattered streets, his rifle resting heavy on his shoulder. The cold air bit at his face, but his eyes were fixed ahead, hardened by months of battle. Around him, the squad followed in silence. They moved from cover to cover, stepping carefully among the debris of war. Broken walls, shattered windows, and burned-out vehicles surrounded them. The city was scarred, but it held. Sidorenko passed a row of graves marked by crude wooden crosses. Some bore the names of friends, others of enemies. Each cross was a reminder of lives lost in the fight for this ground. He glanced down at the snow-covered markers and kept walking. The streets were quiet, except for the crunch of boots on snow. The men stayed alert, knowing danger could come from any ruined building or alley. Yet there was a strange stillness after the recent fighting. The city seemed to hold its breath. Sidorenko's face had changed since the first day of the campaign. His features were older, his eyes sharper. He no longer carried the bright hope of youth. Instead, his face showed the weight of command and survival. The Mosin-Nagant rifle slung across his back had once been the subject of jokes. Many men called it outdated and slow compared to newer weapons. But in this war, the rifle had proven itself reliable and deadly. Among the squad, the Mosin-Nagant had become a symbol. It connected them to their roots and reminded them of what they fought for. In the cold silence, the rifle was more than a tool, it was a sign of endurance. Each man carried his own memories of loss. Silent glances passed between them, speaking without words. The pain of friends fallen in battle, the sacrifices made, and the hope to survive another day. The city itself was a witness. Streets that once held life were now battlegrounds. Buildings reduced to rubble told stories of artillery shells and aerial bombs. Yet the ruins stood as proof of resistance. Sidorenko halted briefly at a corner. He scanned the rooftops, his fingers tightening on the rifle strap. The squad tightened their formation, ready to move on his command. Every step forward was cautious. Behind them, the snow-covered footprints erased tracks quickly. In this frozen environment, time seemed both slowed and urgent. Survival depended on careful movement and sharp eyes. The squad's progression showed discipline. They avoided open areas and used the ruined structures for cover. The city's destruction became their advantage, hiding places in the skeleton of buildings. Sidorenko thought of the men who had fallen here, their bodies buried under snow or rubble. The cost of holding the city was high, but retreat was not an option. The loyalty among the men was clear. They followed Sidorenko not just out of duty, but out of trust. He had led them through harsh winters, fierce battles, and long nights without rest. The cold was relentless, but the squad's spirit was steady. Their shared struggle had forged a bond stronger than the frost. Each man knew what had been lost and what still survived. Sidorenko adjusted his grip on the Mosin-Nagant. The rifle carried memories of battles fought and won. It was a reminder that even in ruin, there was strength. The squad moved forward again, quiet and focused. The city around them remained scarred but resilient. The fight had taken much, but it had not broken their will. In the snow, the past and present met. Graves and ruins spoke of sacrifice. The soldiers' steady steps carried the memory of loyalty forward. Sidorenko's eyes caught the faint outline of a distant building. He signaled the squad to halt and listen. Every moment counted in this frozen battlefield. The Mosin-Nagant rested ready on his shoulder. It was no longer just a weapon, it was a symbol of survival, of memory, and of the quiet loyalty that kept them moving. The snow kept falling as they waited, silent but alert. The city stood battered, but Sidorenko and his men stood with it scarred, steady, and unbroken. Winter in Stalingrad dragged on through 1942, turning the city into a frozen battleground of hunger and exhaustion. The fighting had slowed, but a deadly, silent war had taken hold between snipers. Ivan Sidorenko's Mosin-Nagant rifle, battered and worn, became more than just a tool for killing. It was a symbol of patience, skill, and survival. Sidorenko scored 33 confirmed kills during this grueling period. Each was not just a number, but a story of careful calculation amid constant danger. His targets were moments of hesitation turned into opportunity, where one wrong move could mean death. The rifle's bolt action forced him to be deliberate. Every shot counted. At first, some soldiers mocked Sidorenko's enemy rifle, doubting its effectiveness compared to Soviet weapons. But as the sniping continued, that ridicule faded. The quiet precision of his fire earned respect where once there was doubt. The harsh winter and ruined city shaped the battlefield. Visibility was poor, with snow and rubble offering fragile cover. Snipers faced the cold and constant threat of discovery. In this desperate environment, choices mattered more than weapons. Sidorenko's squad learned that loyalty depended on who made the right decisions under pressure. The war pressed on beyond those frozen streets, but Sidorenko's week of sniping left a lasting mark. The memory of every shot echoed through the shattered windows and silent mornings. It was a reminder that in Stalingrad, survival was won not by firepower alone, but by patience, skill, and trust in each other. In the end, the line between enemy and comrade was drawn by actions in battle, not by the rifle carried. Sidorenko's story became a quiet testament to loyalty amid the chaos of war.